Hi, welcome. My name is David Chilabira here at AI TV, together with my co-host Judy Bukenya.
Yes, sir.
Nice having you.
Thank you for
How
having
have you
me.
been? You well?
I'm very well, and you?
Nice having you here. And dear wonderful viewers, it's a pleasure that you have tuned in to AI TV. And this is the You Voice, Your Voice. We want to make change happen, and it all begins and it starts with you. So we are here to amplify your voice, and we want to welcome you. We want to welcome you to this show.
We most especially want to welcome our English-speaking friends and friends to Uganda. Uganda is our home country, and it's also home to about 44 million people. We Ugandans in the diaspora are standing with those who are calling out the injustices and violence happening in Uganda. And we're calling for the acknowledgement of humanity in one another. So on this show, we're going to be learning about and discussing issues that impact all of the future of all Ugandans.
Yeah, when you look at the lives of many Ugandans, they have been tainted with traumatic experiences of deprivation, injustices, human rights abuse, abductions. Many people are having many questions and less answers. So we want to be looking at all these issues and the current political situation in Uganda. So we're going to be speaking up. We're going to be standing out, raising the voice to be counted and speaking on the side, on the part of the voiceless. So it includes many grievances after the very contentious election that happened, Judy. We see there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension everywhere in Uganda. So we want to let our viewers and our listeners come and we discuss, and we want to engage them and see what has been happening in the week, what's happening in the opposition, in the government, the stories that have made news.
And our intention is to reach a wide audience with the story of our struggle in hopes of inspiring friends of Uganda into action. So our top stories this week.
Yeah.
As you know, Stop EACOP campaign has been a main focus in stopping the East African crude oil pipeline. This week, a report came that 3 top French banks pulled out of financing the EACOP. Again, for those of you who are unaware of what the EACOP is the East African crude oil pipeline. The pipeline is about 1,445 kilometers. That's about 898 miles from Hoima, Uganda to the coast of Tanzania, where that oil would be sent to China and other parts of the world. That pipeline would also displace about 120,000 Africans between Uganda and Tanzania, and would also produce and emit about 34 million pounds of carbon emissions. 34 million pounds.
Wow.
Not only displacing Africans and people's homes and families, but it would be destroying wildlife, it would be destroying rivers, it would be destroying a lot of our plantation. And so this pipeline also costs about $3 billion, of which $2.5 billion is financed. Now, with these 6 banks pulling out of financing this pipeline, I wonder what the impact of the Trade Commission in Uganda signing this trade agreement would be on the economy of Uganda.
Yeah, and Judy, also something that comes to mind when you speak about this is that we have to, the question that Ugandans, I think, are left with or are having, is this for the good of the nation? Because many projects in the past have come up, many initiations and many new inventions have come, and many projects in Uganda, but the question stays, is this for the good of all Ugandans, and how are Ugandans involved in this?
Indeed.
And the accountability. The other challenge that the government has is the accountability issue, because we've seen a lot of corruption sagas with ministries and ministers in Uganda in the past. So we want to ask ourselves, and we wonder how the corruption issue is going to be dealt with all these much funding
Yes.
We are left with a question about the accountability and the transparency, because this is great money, this is big money. And also when you spoke about the displacement of the people, relocating the people. So it really brings a lot of questions and a lot of tension to the common person. What kind of arrangements has the government put in place? Where are these people going to? Where are they putting? Are they putting these people? I think we are yet to find out from the minister. Maybe it's the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness. Maybe it's not a disaster.
Yeah.
So we are here to see, dear viewers, and I know we are going to give you a moment to call back and call in and let us know your thoughts. Do you think this is a plus for Ugandans? Do you think this is an increase, or is it worth celebrating, or just some other thing that the government does?
And given the history of how monies have been distributed, squandered in Uganda, my question and my concern is the resettlement action plan that Uganda's Minister of Energy just approved. The intention of this approval is to acquire land, secure the land, and then pay the compensation to the people that they would remove from that land. My question is the integrity attached to these action steps. What are the checks and balances to make sure that this actually happens? And given that there are about 120,000 people who would be displaced, what integrity would be put in place to make sure that happens for those 120,000 people?
Yeah, and also the other question that comes to mind, our viewers and everyone, friends of Uganda, the other question is that the involvement or the engagement of the leaders, the leaders of the people, because the people have representatives. So all the stakeholders, the different stakeholders. So do the people even know what's going on? The people deep down in the village, in Kabila Maido, or in all these areas, the common person, there are people who don't even know what the pipeline is all about. So is it just for the few elite, or is it the sensitization? We have to ask ourselves, has the government done enough sensitization for the peasants, the common people?
Yes, and is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? So this is a developing story. As of yesterday, those 6 banks had pulled out of financially supporting the ECOP. So this is a story that we're going to be following and keeping you, all abreast on.
Yeah, and as Judy says, we are going to be keeping you informed, and we'll be giving you the latest news here at AITV. You find it just on New Voice. You just tune into Your Voice, and this is where you find all the happening stories in Uganda and all the current news. Unbiased, we just relay it as it is.
So we want to move into other news.
Yeah.
So we want to bring you the story of the Ugandan women protest that happened recently in Uganda.
Yeah.
We want to shed light as to the plight of our mothers, our sisters, the wives back home who have either lost family members, who have lost husbands, who have lost children, cannot find their husbands or their fathers, and their cry to the government, and their cry also out to you, to the world, again, our English-speaking friends to Uganda. And so I want to introduce Margaret Nansubuga.
And Jody, just sorry to cut you short, but just to give more light to our viewers, first timers, if this is your first time to follow what's happening in Uganda, we want to let you know that we just concluded an election that many people believe was fraudulent and is still contested. There's still a lot of unsatisfactory questions and contestation, and we saw the leading opposition leader, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, take the case to the court and then withdraw because of many other issues. I won't go back into that. But after that, we saw a trend that was followed of his supporters, NUP supporters, being arrested. So I'm just giving a genesis of all this, the protests. Why were the women? Because someone might be asking, why were the women, even the mothers of the nation, the mothers in Uganda, why were they protesting? And they were protesting about what? So this election that was very contentious ended with many NUP supporters in the 3,000s being arrested, being hunted, all those who were known to have DRA forms, the state operatives, the state security agencies were hunting these young men and women, and many of them went missing. So this is the background or the genesis of all these protests, why people have come out to the streets demanding for their loved ones. So just carry on.
Thank you for that, David. Thank you so much for that background. So we want to introduce Margaret Nansubuga. She is the counselor for women in Uganda. And so she's not able to be with us today because of connection issues, but she was able to send us her statements in some of the questions that we had for her. So we're going to show some videos, some pictures of the women's protest, and also we're going to be listening to her sharing about that protest.
The incentive the women had to hold the protest. Okay, first and foremost, we are going to give the background of the protest. They are literally asking for what motivated the ladies to go onto the streets to protest. What motivated us? Like what was the anger, the passion behind the protest? One, we shall have to first give. If this is an interview, we shall have to first give the background of the protest. You need to tell these people that, first of all, it wasn't actually going to happen. We didn't come like with plans to have this protest. Like, it wasn't a planned move. It was just coming to read out a document to the press. Yeah, it was a presser basically to read out what was hurting women, such that after reading, this document is taken to the Speaker of Parliament. Of course, as it was a petition asking Parliament to see that at least these people get released from prisons, the abductions and their current abductions. So the incentive, the motivation behind the protest, abachalo kuvayo ne bagamba, let's go to the streets, let's take it to the streets, was very simple. Walaba bulungi, as they were reading the document, when people first and foremost stood up and they're like, no, abantu bano, after mentioning these three names, I think, were they three? The Right Honorable Speaker Kadaga, then they mentioned the First Lady, I remember very well. Okay, yeah, they, after mentioning those names, Ganabo Bachala, and they have really not been able to come through for what is happening, like to see what's happening. Abachala bano betwogerako abanene enjasa biggu abali mu ggwanga, they have not really showed concern about what's happening. They have not showed concern about the abducted children, yeah, because of course tumanyi they are mothers of this country, but they have not come through to see that at least people get released from wherever they are. Abaana b'eggwanga ate nga nabo bazadde. I think this is what the incentive was. This is what motivated ladies. Kubanga bamala kwogera ku bakyala abo ababiri abantu ne bafuna that heat of passion. Magamba, no, let's take it to the streets. If these people, actually the people that we think would have been able or in position to fight for the children of this nation, to fight for our husbands, to fight like for our brothers, but they actually really not doing anything. They're not doing what we expect of them. Abachala ne basituka ne bagamba nti no, we need to take this to the streets such that at least they can feel our pain. Maybe they can talk to their husbands. Katinga omukyala kataha walaba nti bamentioninze
Yeah, viewers, as you are seeing on the screens, we want you to see those images where the ladies were protesting and they took it to the streets. And Judy, you as a mother and as a lady representing the women, what does this, as a lady, do you think, because many people have been thinking that this is men issue, it's the struggle is for the men. Now we see mothers. What comes to your mind seeing ladies putting on their local attires and we see very disturbing images. You see the police officers trying to drag that lady there and trying to, it's like undressing and using force. What comes to your mind? How do you feel about this?
Thank you for the question. As I'm seeing these women protesting on behalf of their husbands and their fathers, it shows and speaks to the power of femininity, the power of our womanhood to elicit change. A lot of the civil rights movements here in the U.S. was run by men, yes, but it was powered by women. And so to have women who are willing to risk their own lives, who are willing to risk their own safety, to demand accountability for the kidnapping, for the murders, for the assault of their husbands, and demanding that you bring back their bodies, dead or alive. It speaks to the power of womanhood. It speaks to the power of a woman's voice. And so it takes a lot of courage for women, even one woman, to come out and speak to truth to power and demand that she be justified, to demand that she be vindicated for the loss of her husband, her father, her son. It's really powerful to see these women. And as they're being dragged, as you saw pictures there, they're being dragged, they're being yanked around. It speaks to the brutality of what's happening in Uganda, that femininity and womanhood is no longer sacred, and that has to also be accounted for as well.
Yeah, and also a few weeks ago we hosted Dorothy Stewart, the leader of NUP here in the Greater Boston area, and also the leader of the welfare department in the diaspora, right?
That's right.
And also she brought very disturbing images and stories of these young people who have been tortured and maimed in the torture chambers, that when they are arrested by the infamous drones, they are picked from different houses, their homes and their different places. And when they are taken to unknown places or to prisons like in Chitalia or different prisons, that they are not just arrested just like any other person, but they are tortured.
They're sexually violated.
Do you think the torture, and these are people, we've seen images of people who will never work, who will never function again, who will never be useful to the society again, people who were not lame before the election but now are lame, people who have lost nails and who have been battered and beaten very badly. Do you think this also fueled the anger in these mothers and in these women?
Absolutely.
And also, what comes to your mind when you see there are just a few women, you see just a few ladies moving to the streets and they are not accompanied by the society? Do you think, is the society, are Ugandans disengaged? Is it that Ugandans have come to a point whereby it doesn't concern me as long as it's not in my own household? Are Ugandans traumatized? Are they living in denial? Are they living in fear? What comes to you? What do you think?
I think, and it's evident that the attempt on human life, the attempting, it's one thing to break a person's bones and a person's legs. It's another to break the spirit. And so when husbands and fathers and sons are taken away from families as an attempt to break the spirit of that family, it's an attempt to break the spirit of the woman in that home, because you are our protectors. And so when men are kidnapped, they're murdered, they're brought home crippled, they're no longer who they used to be before this. It's an attempt to psychologically, psychosocially, is an attempt to break the human spirit. And that's maddening enough for one woman to get her gomesi together, put it on, and go and speak truth to power.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith, and dear viewers. As we go on the other side, we have a comrade, a friend, and an activist from the NUP, Henry Masembe. Henry, can you Are you ready to come? We will have him later. We will have Henry join us on this conversation. He has wonderful thoughts and wonderful ideas, and we need him to shed more light on these issues. But as we go on, Judy, another trending story that made news in Uganda was the celebration of the 66th birthday. I think it was.
I believe he's 66.
Yeah, 65th birthday of our king, the Kabaka of Buganda Kingdom, Kabaka Ronald Frederick Chimera Muwenda Mutebi II, the reigning king of the Buganda Kingdom and its constitutional kingdom in a modern day Uganda. And Uganda is really blessed. He has come out and he has been very instrumental in the fight for human rights and for rule of law. And we have seen him come up different occasions to fight for different very good causes. So we celebrate with him and we congratulate him. We congratulate you, King Ronald Muwenda Mutebi, and we love you so much and we pray for you that you will be well. God will give you more days and more years, and you will overcome all challenges that are before you. So we're going to really switch to another topic, Judith. I don't know if you're ready, but we want to switch to another topic. And as I've told you, viewers, we're going to be having Henry in a few minutes to come. We'll be having Henry on the other side, and he will be giving us his take on things. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, David, recently there were, actually this week, Senator Anthony Blinken put sanctions on individuals in Uganda who were participants in the rigging of the elections, in human rights abuses this week. And this week there were responses in Uganda to these sanctions. What do you think about the responses that some Ugandans have had, government personnel that they've had towards these sanctions?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that it was very, very surprising. It has become a trend or a norm for the officials in the Ugandan government whenever they ask for accountability, or whenever the US or the European Union points to their excesses. It has become a norm for them to come against them, bare knuckles to attack them, and to say that they are being unfair, and to respond in such a way that I believe personally that it's uncalled for. It's arrogant and it's adamant, and they want to drive each and everything that the US had was being partisan in the recent elections. So they justify everything that the US says and the US comments on their excesses. So it's really disappointing. It's really disappointing because Uganda, we are not an island, and we are part of the global community, and we respect the rule of law, and human rights is international. So dear viewers, I will just pause a little bit. We have Henry on the other side. Henry Masembe is going to be joining us. He's an activist and also from the NUP. Hi Henry, it's nice having you on the Your Voice show. So we want to have your take on all that has been happening. I believe you've been following what has been going on back in Uganda. Many stories that have been trending, and myself and Judy were just talking about the statement of Secretary Blinken. So what do you have to say about these issues, Henry?
Hello, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Henry,
barely.
we can hear you. The mask is
All right.
blocking your voice, but
Oh, the mask, I'm sorry. And I'm by myself in the office, so
yeah,
I
feel
have the
free
liberty of
to
taking off
just
the
be
mask.
odd boy now.
You guys look good. It's fun to see. It's fun to see new faces in the studio. So I'm glad to be with you. I'm on Zoom, but I feel like I'm with you in the studio. So yeah, you guys have touched on a few things, and it's amazing to be in the US, in America, a first world country. How is America called by the global community? Like, this is the greatest country on the planet. To hear things coming out of our country, it's kind of nauseous. It makes you nauseous. So you asked me about the visa restrictions. I'll gladly respond briefly to that. That we definitely appreciate every move that the US is doing to see that Uganda is brought to the realization that they're breaking all the laws in the book in regards to human rights and the rule of law as in leadership. And so I had Joy start with the pipeline in starting from Uganda to Tanzania. I wish we were celebrating those moves, but we know that these monies, whatever is going to come out of the profits, is going to directly to the Museveni family and his cohorts. So when we had the elections, as you briefly and nicely went back, and we know that the president, our elected president, Robert Kyagulanyi, was denied his victory, and Museveni, who has been in power for 36 years, self-proclaimed himself winner. We know that the world was watching, and we know that the people in the diaspora, for us, who keep on shouting, who are refusing to keep quiet, keep on protesting. These things yield to sanctions. We've seen the EU sanction Uganda. We've seen the US cutting off funds to Uganda, and now visa restrictions. The visa restrictions seem like a small token, but they are really something, because it comes with even property. They're looking into the properties of the people in the government. They're looking into now their families. So we really want them to go ahead, because we know that the government, people in the government, have their families who are benefiting from these countries, from developed countries. Yet they say that everything is fine, everything is all right in our country. So we welcome these moves. We welcome all the restrictions that actually the development world is imposing on Uganda. But there is way too much to be done, and for us here, we just want to keep on pushing and keep on protesting, keep on tweeting that there's more they can do. You've said
so. Henry, before you move on to another topic, what would you want? What would you want the US and other friends of Uganda? What do you want you as NUP? What would you want the international community to do more? Do you feel they're doing enough, or what would you ask them to do?
So, the US or the development
partners,
the development partners, they are doing something, but we know very well that Uganda right now, Museveni has done a good job of destabilizing Central Africa, and himself building the army, the Ugandan army, to be the police of Central Africa. So in this way, Museveni is coming out looking like he's the prefect of Central Africa, yet he causes these disabilities. We want the US to realize that when they trust Museveni to be the sole policeman in Somalia, to be the sole policeman in Congo, he's bringing back these ammunitions and torturing his own people. And he is tramping on the opposition because he's afraid to get out of power. We want the US to know that they can have other partners in Uganda instead of Museveni. We want the development partners to understand that they need to trust the country versus trusting Museveni, who has been in power for more than 36 years. Museveni is killing his own people. So if another person, and I'm not going to mention the name Robert Kyagulanyi, became president, we are not here to destabilize our neighbors. We are part of the community. We want to live peacefully in the community. And I know that Uganda as a government, if it has another leader, it can well be in the same partnership with the US, minus Museveni. So after Museveni came into power in mid-80s, it's about time to leave. And when he leaves, Uganda can stay. I know there is very many examples of Egypt and Libya. We do not have to be like those countries. Ugandans are very peaceful people. And Museveni is using this for his benefit. He knows that we are afraid of dying. People are not going to be protesting and breaking down things, so he's using it to his benefit. But we want the US to know that we are not planning to be like Libya or other countries that are like Syria that have been chaotic in case Museveni leaves. So we want the US to do much, much more trusting the people versus trusting Museveni.
Thank you so much. As we prepare to wind up, we also saw in the many responses from government officials in Uganda, government spokesperson Ofono Pondo came out and just trashed all those sanctions and all those visa restrictions that you are celebrating about. And he said that those are just nothing. They don't need so much. They don't need to come to the US. So how do you feel about that being in the NUP and as NUP?
Well, those things are making us laugh in the NUP camp because we know the Bobby Wine, let me call him by that name. Bobby Wine has done a song that says Kasukali Keiko, meaning that how can I interpret that? David, you're gonna help me interpret that. It says Kasukali Keiko batwongeremu. We know that if this is a cup of tea, this is the right amount of sugar. We are pushing and they are smelling the coffee. So these are just facades that they are putting on. We know that they want their families to be in this country. They want to be in these countries. But these visa restrictions come with many other restrictions that even go into their properties. So we know that what the US is doing is totally hurting them, and it's directly hurting them. And it's funny that every single government official who has said that they don't care or they want to stay in Uganda, they apparently want the US to investigate the real truth, quote unquote, the real truth. Like anybody, even a baby, can see what's happening on the ground. Right now, as we speak, we have hundreds of, like more than 500 people who are now political prisoners, who are in different various prisons for no charges at all. When the Ugandan law, I think it gives you 2 days or 3 days for them to have been brought to court and charged with a crime. But most of them are in prisons, most of them are in military prisons without being charged. Yet the government of Uganda, the spokespeople of Uganda, want US to give them due process before they can impose visa restrictions on them. So that's the hypocrisy of the highest order. We know these restrictions are hurting them, these restrictions are hurting their families, and we pray and beg and plead to the US to continue digging into the government's families and all the people who are connected to the government to make sure that they don't make their lives easy as they enjoy our resources and our taxes and everything.
Thank you so much. Your final thoughts, Henry. Your final thoughts.
Well, let me talk about the larger issues about the news in Uganda, because I know you mentioned about the Kabaka's birthday, and I wish we could celebrate. But as we talk about the prisoners of political prisoners in various prisons in Uganda, we know that the Kabaka, our Kabaka, and when we talk about this Kabaka, we are talking about Buganda as the major kingdoms in Uganda. And we know why this Kabaka is very important, because Buganda is in the central of Uganda, and in the Buganda kingdom is where all commercial, everything, this is the capital city, this is the heart of Uganda. So the Buganda king is very, very important even to the political sphere of Uganda. So this king has been denied treatment. We know that very well. And we know that the Ugandan government, Museveni government, has infiltrated the kingdom of Uganda, that they are manipulating the Buganda officials to the point that it seems like the king has no say in his own kingdom. So there's reports that the king cannot travel out of Uganda. There's reports that the king his passport was pulled by the government. And recently, when the king was celebrating his birthday, he appeared frail. He appeared amiss. Something was off with his way of behavior. And then, like 2 days after, we saw a clip of the king walking in the mall by himself. Those are things that we've never seen, and we know that the king is also in prison in his own kingdom. So we also, on that note, ask for the release of our king. The king should be out of the country to get proper medical treatment. You know, that's how I would love to summarize.
Well, thank you so much, Henry. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for being on the call, and thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate you so much. Wonderful viewers. That was Henry Masende, and we appreciate him for the great thoughts and great deliberation. So, Judy, we are going to give an opportunity to our viewers to get part of this engagement, this conversation. Yeah, so I don't know. I think we are ready. I think the producer will put the number where you can call. You can call and be part of the conversation. The number is going to be on your screen, and you can call, and we'll give you an opportunity. As we wait for them, what do you have to say about Henry submitting about all those issues? Yeah,
I think there's so many action steps, and at the end of the show, we're going to be giving you action steps that all of our viewers can take to really push for the increased sanctions on Uganda.
Yeah.
A lot of when I first heard that there are visa restrictions and there were individual restrictions that were put on some individuals, I questioned, like, individuals, we want Museveni taken down, and then I learned that in 2014 Russia invaded Ukraine. And March of that year, President Obama pressed sanctions on the government of, not just the government of Russia, but on individual sanctions on individuals who were part of the invasion of Ukraine. And what happened because of that, 2014 to 2016, there was a financial crisis in Russia because oil prices went down. It went down, I think, from $113 a barrel to $38 a barrel. And it turns out that 30% of Russia's economy is in their oil. And so these sanctions, they may appear small, but they actually have big impacts on the global economy. They have impacts on Uganda's economy. So we're starting out, I don't want to say small, because they're not, these sanctions and these visa restrictions are not small, but they're very impactful. And so our viewers, our intention is for you to keep pushing. And so things like reaching out to your senators and inviting them to support the Menendez resolution 807 on Uganda. And what that resolution has in it, attached in it, is the Magnitsky Act. You've heard of that? So what the Magnitsky Act it allows for the U.S. to put sanctions on any international government body for human rights abuses. And so when we ask and push for our senators to vote yes for the Menendez resolution, we push for the accountability to be held even at a tighter neck hold on Uganda, Museveni, the government, the army, all of the above. So I think these action steps are very pivotal to what's next for Uganda, and also the involvement of our friends here in the U.S., Europe, UK, Australia, though they may not have the Menendez Act out there, but to push for sanctions on Uganda, it's something that we can all be a part of.
Wow, thank you so much, Judy, for that very, very wonderful elaboration. Yeah, so right now we just want to open up the calls for our viewers. You can call in and be part of this discussion because it's your voice, as you heard. Your voice matters, and it's not just about us here in the studio, but even your voice counts and matters. So feel free right now to call in and be part of the conversation wherever you are. I believe the producer is putting the number on the screens and you can call in. Yeah, so it's really interesting what's happening in Uganda. And when you spoke about the impact being felt, I think, do you think it must be that the officials are living in denial, or they are trying to pretend that they are strong? They are not shaken, but deep down in the core they are shaken?
Oh, they're shaking.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
of course. It's a human response. You get scared, you pretend that you're not scared to save a face. They're just saving face for their fear. That's all. And I love it.
What about the Ugandans in the diaspora? Do you feel they're doing enough? What do you have to say about?
I think there's always room for more.
Do you think Ugandans are exerting enough pressure?
I think there is pressure. There's always room for more pressure. If there was all hands on deck, and we're calling for all hands on deck in and pressing more, it can be done. It can absolutely be done. Yeah, so we are coming to the close. We are coming to the close of our show, and we really want to thank you so much, dear viewers. Today we don't seem to have any callers. If you're there, we're just giving you one last opportunity for you to call in and be part of the conversation wherever you are. We want Ugandans in the diaspora to wake up, as they have said that there are three types of people. There are those who watch things happen, there are those who make things happen, and there are those who wonder what's happening. So don't be part of those who wonder what's happening. Be part of those stand out to be counted. So it's really interesting where we have come in this whole Ugandan issue. And by the way, have you heard from Bobi Wine? How is Bobi Wine doing? I have not personally heard from him.
Yeah.
But I do believe he did have a almost like a State of the Union address earlier. Was it last week?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about? Were you? I wasn't on the call, but
yeah,
some people were on the call as it was a Zoom
I
call.
happened to be on that call, and briefly, what I can remember is that he's still strong and resilient, and he's still bold, and he was urging. Part of the things that he spoke about is the retreat that they had. The NUP had their leaders, national leadership retreat, and they are really forming structures. It's really wonderful to see this party that is leading right now, the leading opposition party, forming structures and going out to different places of the country with their elected leaders, MPs, councillors, chairpersons, and district mayors, and all those taking shape. And it's really encouraging to see what's happening in the short period of time, despite all the opposition and all the mistreatment and the harassment. Bobi Wine looks to be strong and getting very strong every day that comes by.
Absolutely.
And I believe this really must encourage people in the diaspora to keep fighting for justice, to keep pushing for good governance, to keep fighting against corruption. Yeah, that's what I can say briefly. And how would you want to end this show? Your final remarks, Jody.
My final remarks: humanity.
Oh, we
is
have
that
a caller. We had a caller. Maybe we lost him.
You're very welcome to call back.
Yeah, you can call back. We're winding up, but you can call back on the number if you may. Yes.
I was going to say that humanity, our humanity is at stake. The way that we interact with one another, the way that we are willing to turn a blind eye for the sake of more, money in our pockets. Whether we're the French government or we're, in the NRM government, it really speaks to the condition of the human being when we're willing to turn a blind eye to the suffering of others. And so my intention, and I believe the intention of this show, is to bring back the humanity of Ugandans, to bring back the humanity of people on earth, because we're all in this thing together.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear viewers. We will want to tell you that again next time we're going to be on, and next week please tune in, and we hope to even have a guest from Chad, and we'll be talking about Chad next week, God willing. So you have been very, very wonderful viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to the U Voice, and on myself and together with AITV, we want to appreciate AITV and the producers and everyone, the crew. Thank you so much. Oh, we have a caller as we are winding up. I'll just open up to. Oh, we lost the caller. I don't know if we lost the caller. So we will be having a guest from Chad, because we believe Africa, we are one Africa, and we believe Black Lives Matter not only here in the US, but everywhere. Ugandans' lives and African lives, Black Lives Matter everywhere. So we'll be hosting that visitor. And we'll be having a lot to discuss and to touch base with on the weekly stories again next week, what will happen in Uganda. We promise you one thing, that here at Your Voice, we will bring it right in your sitting room, in your car, in your chair. We will give you all the updated information on the news. So please tune in then, and thank you so much for tuning in. I love you so much, and God bless. Take care.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.